Okay, so I think when it comes to ethics, in order to make ethical choices as a producer like myself or as consumers like you, we need to know a little bit about the product at hand. So, and I think we do a really good job when it comes to that. Here in Sweden, at least, I think people are very aware about the different products that we use day to day. I guess most of you would prefer organic fruit and vegetables, I guess. I guess some of you also buy locally meat from local farmers, and that's great. And when you go to the grocery store today, it's all there in front of you, very well communicated. So that, along with what you already know, uh, will make you choose. And sometimes you choose everything very ethically. Sometimes you choose some of it. It all depends. Because, yeah, you're willing to pay a little bit more for that. Because, yeah, it costs more. So, do we make the same ethical choice when it comes to coffee? Um, I think many of us think we do, but really, I think we can do a lot more. And the reason we don't do it is basically because we don't really know how coffee works. Now in Sweden, we drink a lot of coffee, but we can't really relate to coffee. Why is that? Well, I think it could be because coffee grows a long way from Sweden. It's nothing that really connect to. Not many of us have been to a coffee farm or met coffee farmers, so on. What we experience when it comes to coffee is basically that, a cup of coffee, a black liquid. That's the end of the line. That's the last step. So in order to make ethical choices, you need to know what has happened before. So I'll try to shed some light on that today. And hopefully you leave here with new information that'll make you, give you the ability to choose a little bit more. You buy your coffee, whether it's on the cafe or coffee bar or in the grocery store. This is a very simplified version of the supply chain. I've done my best. And we can talk a little bit more about specifics afterwards. But yeah, I'm just going to break it down how it works. Well, coffee is a crop. It's a berry that grows on trees, and it's farmed by farmers around the world. So the farmer takes care of the estate or the finca or the coffee farm, maintains it, and see that the trees produces fruits. And basically, once a year, it's harvest time. And then you harvest the cherries. After the harvest, you have all the post-harvest processes. This could be washing the coffee, drying the coffee, and there are numerous ways of doing it. You can dry the coffee inside the fruit. You can ferment it to release all the fruit and fruit flesh. There are many ways of doing it, but it needs to be done. And some farmers have the ability to do this themselves. They have access to wet mills or dry mills, which it's called, to process the coffee. And many farmers don't. They're very small scale. So what they need to do then is basically buy the service from a private wet mill or dry mill, and at that point they release their coffee, and the other part takes over. Or they can be part of a cooperative. This is very common in, let's say, Ethiopia, where you have a lot of small-scale farmers. A cooperative washing station could represent maybe 700 to 1,000 farmers in the region. Now, when the coffee is processed, and that means also sorted and arranged into bags, it's basically ready for shipping to Europe, for instance. And who handles that? Well, that's a job for the exporter in the origin country. An exporter also, that can be a huge company. I mean, some exporters, they buy tons and tons and tons of coffee, hundreds of tons, and just keep it and sells it to the market in Europe or some exporters are really small and really specific about what they buy. They might focus on a certain variety or a certain micro region in Colombia. But still, the function of the exporter is to basically organize the logistics and get the coffee out of the origin country. So the exporter will work quite closely with the importer. The importer is on, basically in Europe, you will have importers working with exporters in origin country. Importers and exporters can also be one and the same. All right? Same thing here. Importers can be huge companies, trade houses, but it can also be really small, specialty coffee focused companies. Well, after a while, the coffee will reach the roaster. The roaster is in contact with the importer and roasts the coffee. When the coffee is roasted, it's basically ready to be brewed. So if you go to a coffee bar, probably the roaster, depending on what coffee you have, has sold the coffee to a wholesale company who in turn sells it to the sales point. Coffee bar, restaurant, yeah. Big roasters, like the industrial ones, they will sell the coffee directly to a sales point like ICA or like these big supermarkets. And then you can pick it up there. Now, in our case, we have a coffee bar, so we go directly to the sales point where you can have a cup of coffee, or we sell it directly to you. Yeah. Now, this is not one solution. You can do this in many ways. And what's important to remember is there's no one way of doing this, because it all depends on what origin the coffee comes from. For instance, you would argue that working directly from the roaster to the farmer would be the best way to do it. And it can be. And in some countries, it's possible. For instance, the coffee you're having later is a coffee that came directly from the farmer to us, Colombia. And in places like Costa Rica, it's pretty easy to establish that type of trade with the farmer directly, because they have the finances and the logistics to handle it. Now, if you work with Ethiopia, for instance, the law will not let you do that. You have to use an exporter. And exporters are licensed by the Ethiopian government. So you won't get around that. You can't work directly with a farmer in Ethiopia. Yeah, so it all depends. Kenya is the same. So with coffee, you need to really understand the specifics of every origin. And when you make your choices, you have to choose wisely. I mean, choose to work with people that share your visions. Of course, people who use transparent trade that can provide you with the information you need. Basically, I would say if you use an importer, it should also be very easy for me. If I want the number for the guy who farmed the coffee, it should be provided. Because if I need to know specifics about what were the workers paid during harvest, or what kind of pesticides do you use, blah, 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 I should be able to contact that person directly. And that kind of transparency really makes it easier to be ethical. It also makes it easier to improve quality. Yeah? So, and always aim for long-term relationships, of course. And with that said, if it doesn't work out, somebody doesn't fulfill these criteria, well, then you need to find someone else. It takes a couple of years. Yeah, I hope you got that. So, what do we want when it comes to ethics? We can divide it, just to simplify, into environmental ethics. But we want good farming practices. That means less water use. We don't want any harmful chemicals in the coffee that we drink. We want people to reuse the waste products, the cherries, for instance. Eco-friendly transports from the farm to the wet mills and so on. Recyclable packaging. We want them to invest in lot separation so we can collect that data. That is important when it comes to the environment. We want variety improvement, of course. So we can have varieties that resist certain diseases without using pesticides. Quality improvement, pollution-free roasting, so on and so on. When it comes to human ethics, well, we want the farmers to have a safe work environment, like yourselves. We want them to have access to healthcare. We want their children to be able to go to school, to be given fair pay. And if it's a cooperative, it should be a fair distribution of funds. That basically means organization and democracy, right? Comfort, of course. I mean, if it's the World Cups, of course, they should be able, even if it's in the middle of the harvest, to be able to watch the game. It could be simple things, small things, and some things are huge. All right, so how do we get these things? Well, of course, you understand that all these things can be done, they can be improved, but it costs money. It actually costs a lot of money. And if you look at coffee prices today, it doesn't really match up. If you look at what we pay for coffee, generally, it doesn't really match up. So, I truly believe in order to have an ethical coffee culture, we need the investments on both sides of the supply chain to promote and sustain coffee quality. And meaning both the quality of the experienced cup of coffee, which you guys have, and the quality of life for everyone involved. So by investing in quality and paying more for that, we can do all these things, but we also get a better cup of coffee, which in the end will land in front of you. And if you really, really like this coffee, you're prepared to pay for it. Also, that cup of coffee blows you away. It improves your life, your quality of life, right? Not as dramatically as a farmer who actually can send his kids to school now, but still, it's an improvement of quality of life. So, this is about learning and understanding what is behind every product. There's no quick fix. There's no certification for everything. This is a way of basically working with coffee. It's really embedded in what we do and what other roasters do. And basically what it boils down to is being conscious. So I really think that the future of ethics when it comes to coffee will be much more conscious consumption instead of maybe certification. Yeah, that's it.